So, picture a man named Billy McElligott. He's a truck driver from Chicago, 66 years old. And if you were to look at him straight on, you would see a face that literally tells two completely different, almost impossible stories.
Yeah, it's a really striking visual.
Right. Like, if you cover up the left side of his face and just look at the right side, you see a very typical 66-year-old. You see a few fine lines around the eyes, maybe some standard wrinkles on the forehead, but absolutely nothing out of the ordinary for a man his age.
Right. It is a perfectly normal baseline. The skin has just aged steadily and, well, predictably.
But then you shift your hand, you cover the right side, and look only at the left side of his face. And suddenly, you aren't looking at a 66-year-old anymore.
No, not at all.
You're looking at someone closer to 80. The skin on that side is deeply lined, leathery, heavily weathered, and just sagging. It is a shocking, almost unbelievable contrast.
Dermatologists are actually quite familiar with this specific phenomenon. They call it photoaging. It's really the physical manifestation of sheer environmental trauma on human tissue.
And in Billy's case, the source of that trauma is incredibly specific. For 30 years, Billy drove the exact same delivery route. He'd wake up at 4 a.m., load up cases of milk bottles, and just embark on a 9-hour drive through Chicago.
30 years of the exact same routine.
Exactly. For 3 decades, driving a delivery truck with no air conditioning, he kept his left window rolled down. So the sun just battered the left side of his face day in and day out.
Which, creates an undeniable visual of the destructive power of ultraviolet rays. But Billy's situation introduces a massive biological mystery.
How so?
Well, there are thousands of truck drivers, construction workers, and farmers who have spent decades with that exact same kind of asymmetrical sun exposure. Yet they don't all look like they have two different faces spliced together.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, some people weather that intense localized exposure relatively well, while others, like Billy, experience rapid, hyper-accelerated aging.
So the real mystery is, well, why Billy? Why do two people under the exact same sun age at totally different speeds? And that is the question we are unpacking today.
It's a fascinating question.
We are looking at the literal biology of skin aging, and we're pulling directly from this amazing chapter called The Man with Two Faces, from Dr. Daniel Waller-Storfer's book, Unlock Your Genes for Precision Health.
Right.
Our mission for this deep dive today is to uncover how your unique genetic code dictates the exact way you age.
Because the sun is merely the trigger here. To understand why your skin might react differently to that trigger than, say, your neighbor's, we have to look closely at the invisible physics of UV rays and the biological shields you are either born with or born without.
Okay, let's break down those rays first, because sunlight feels like one uniform thing hitting our face, but it's actually delivering 3 different forms of ultraviolet radiation, right?
That is a crucial distinction, yes. You have UVC rays, which are incredibly dangerous, but thankfully the Earth's atmosphere filters them out entirely before they reach us.
Okay, good for us.
Right. Then you have UVB. These are the rays that hit the uppermost layers of your skin. So when you get a sunburn, UVB is usually the culprit.
Got it.
But the real stealth damage comes from UVA. These rays have a longer wavelength, which allows them to penetrate deeply past the surface level. They get into the lower layers and actively dismantle the elastic collagen fibers that give your skin its bounce and structure.
So they basically act like a microscopic demolition crew tearing down the scaffolding inside your skin.
That's a great way to put it.
But since early humans spent their entire lives outdoors, you'd think evolution would have given us some kind of built-in defense against that demolition crew,
And evolution did provide us with genetic sunscreens. We have specific genes tasked with shielding ourselves. A major one is the MC1R gene.
MC1R.
Think of this gene as the commander of your skin's pigmentation defenses. When those UV rays hit your skin, the MC1R gene detects the threat and commands your cells to produce melanin, a dark pigment.
Which gives you a tan.
Exactly. This darkens the skin and significantly blocks the rays from doing deeper damage.
So a darker tan is literally your body pulling down a biological shade to protect itself. But if that gene is defective, the shade just gets stuck.
That's exactly it. A defect in the MC1R gene means you produce much less melanin. Your skin stays lighter, your UV protection is compromised, and your risk of severe sun damage and skin cancer skyrockets.
Wow.
And interestingly, recessive variants in this exact same gene are what cause red or ginger hair.
Wait, really? The red hair gene is the sunscreen gene?
Yes. Because the trait is recessive, it easily gets dominated by other hair color genes. You have to inherit that specific red hair variant from both your mother and your father to actually show the red hair and the freckled light skin that typically accompanies it.
That makes perfect sense. The physical trait we see as red hair is essentially a visible marker of a specific biological shield being lowered.
Precisely.
But the source material also highlights another gene, STXBP5L.
Ah, yes. That gene really highlights how resourceful the human body is. STXBP5L is primarily known for releasing chemical messenger substances in your brain cells.
In your brain.
Right, but your body multitasks. That same gene is highly active in the upper layers of your skin, managing natural UV defenses. If you carry a defect in this gene, your baseline natural UV protection drops drastically.
This brings us to the actual numbers, which I honestly found totally staggering. If you're listening to this, you might assume your shields are fully operational. But 33% of the population has an unfavorable variant of that first gene, MC1R.
It's a huge portion of the population.
And for the second one, STXBP5L, a massive 89% of people carry a defective version.
Yeah, almost 9 out of 10 people are walking around with a severely compromised natural barrier against the sun.
Which means, for the vast majority of us, those UVA rays are punching right through the defenses. And when they get in, they don't just break down the structure, they destroy the skin's hydration system. The text specifically calls out the destruction of hyaluronic acid.
Right. Hyaluronic acid operates like a massive moisture reservoir embedded in your skin. When UV rays bypass your weakened genetic shields, they aggressively break down that reservoir. You lose the capacity to hold water, leading to dry, crinkly, aging skin.
To help visualize this, I like to think of a single molecule of hyaluronic acid like a kitchen sponge. In your body, they link together to form long chains of sponges to hold onto water.
Okay, I like this analogy.
So if your natural sponges are being destroyed by the sun, you might try to replace them with a skincare product. But the cosmetic industry often uses what they call high molecular weight hyaluronic acid. These chains are huge, over 1,000 kilodaltons.
Right, they are massive molecules.
That is like taking a chain of 50 heavy-duty sponges and throwing them against a brick wall. They are too massive to penetrate. They just sit on top of your face,
Right.
form a temporary smoothing film, and then wash right off.
That is the perfect way to visualize it. The physical size of the molecule dictates absolutely everything. If you actually want to replenish the moisture reservoir that the sun destroyed, you need smaller chains.
How small are we talking?
To penetrate into the second layer of the skin, the hyaluronic acid needs to be under 100 kilodaltons. And if you want it to reach the deep subcutaneous tissue, you are looking for low molecular weight chains that are 50 kilodaltons or less.
So if you are in that 89% with a defective shield, you can't just use any sponge. You need the microscopically small sponges.
Exactly.
But let's follow the chain of events here. The UV rays break through the shield, they dry out the moisture reservoirs, and they cause severe cellular damage. The body can't just leave broken, damaged cells sitting there, right? It has to clean up the mess.
And that cleanup process introduces the second major factor of aging your own immune system. This is a brilliant but highly destructive evolutionary trade-off.
How so?
Well, when UV rays severely damage skin cells, those cells become a massive liability. They could mutate and turn into cancer. Your immune system spots this dangerous cellular wreckage, recruits specialized immune cells to the site, and floods the tissue with inflammation to entirely destroy the damaged cells before they can form a tumor.
Wait, hold on. This changes how I look at spending a day at the beach entirely. The heat and redness we feel when we get a sunburn, that isn't the sun literally cooking the skin like meat in an oven.
No, not at all.
That is our own immune system intentionally flooding the area with inflammation to trigger cell death.
You are experiencing friendly fire. The redness is the visual evidence of your immune response actively clearing out dangerous precancerous cells so new, healthy cells can replace them. It is prioritizing your survival over the comfort of your skin.
I mean, I understand prioritizing survival, but we also know that chronic inflammation is essentially the enemy of youth. If my immune system is setting controlled fires in my skin to prevent cancer, isn't that fire also accelerating the aging process?
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
That is the paradox of inflammation, and it becomes a severe problem if your genes don't know how to put the fire out.
Okay, so there's a genetic component to stopping the inflammation too.
Yes, there is an entire network of genes responsible for regulating the intensity of this immune attack. If those genes are defective, the immune system overshoots its mark. It attacks too aggressively and stays inflamed for too long. Over decades, this accumulating collateral damage dramatically accelerates how old you look.
Let's look at the alarm bell genes governing this response because the defect rates here are wild. According to the data, 94% of the population has a defect in the IL-1RN gene. For the CRP gene, it's 88%. The IL-6 gene has variants affecting 75% and 58% of people. The only one that functions properly for almost everyone is the TNF-A gene, where only 2% have a defect.
When you look at those numbers collectively, it reveals that almost everyone listening has an immune system genetically wired to overreact when cleaning up sun damage.
If my immune system is genetically hardwired to burn down the house to kill a spider, how do I calm it down?
You have to intervene through your diet, specifically by starving the inflammation of its fuel. You want to strictly avoid pro-inflammatory substances like arachidonic acid.
Arachidonic acid, where is that found?
This acid acts like gasoline for an overactive immune system. You will find high concentrations of it in foods like lard, pork liver, egg yolks, tuna, and liver sausage.
I'll definitely be cutting back on the liver sausage. But what acts as the water to put out the fire?
Anti-inflammatory compounds. Omega-3 fatty acids are incredible for soothing this specific immune response. You can source them from linseed, flaxseed, and walnut oil.
Nice, okay.
You also want to incorporate MSM, which is an organic sulfur. It occurs naturally in low concentrations in corn, tomatoes, tea, and coffee.
Okay, so we've addressed the external UV assault, and we've managed to stop the immune system's overzealous demolition crew. But the structure of the skin, the actual walls and beams, have still been battered. How does the skin rebuild its physical scaffolding?
That brings us to the complex economy of collagen. Collagen strands are the thick, stable pillars in your skin that keep it firm and prevent sagging.
Right.
While your body produces around 30 different types of collagen, about 90% of it is type I. This is the heavy-duty stuff. But collagen isn't permanent. As it ages, it becomes stiff and brittle. To keep the skin youthful, your body operates a continuous cycle of demolishing the old, brittle collagen and constructing fresh, elastic collagen.
Let's start with the demolition side of that economy. How does the body tear down the old pillars?
It uses the MMP1 gene. This gene manufactures specific enzymes whose sole purpose is to act as microscopic wrecking balls, breaking down aged collagen. But here is the genetic catch.
There's always a catch.
There is a common defect in the MMP1 gene. It doesn't break the gene so it stops working. It actually makes the gene hyperactive.
So the wrecking ball is swinging too fast.
Far too fast. For 33% of people, this genetic defect causes their bodies to produce an overwhelming number of these collagen-destroying enzymes. They are demolishing the skin's scaffolding much faster than the construction crew can possibly rebuild it.
Wow. So if you are one of the millions of people who notice your skin suddenly losing its firmness or its bounce in your late 30s, this hyperactive MMP1 gene is likely the exact reason why. Your internal demolition crew is working overtime. How do you slow that wrecking ball down?
The science points to a nutrient called lutein. Lutein essentially acts as a chemical net. It binds to those excess enzymes and blocks the hyperactivity of the defective MMP1 gene, curbing the overproduction.
And where do we get lutein?
You can easily get lutein by eating spinach, lettuce, and red peppers.
Okay, that handles the overactive demolition. But what about the construction crew? We need to actively build new pillars to replace the ones we lost.
Building new collagen requires raw materials. Your body relies on the prolidase gene to produce an enzyme that creates proline. Proline is the fundamental building block of fried collagen. If you don't have proline, the construction site shuts down.
I'm sensing another genetic vulnerability here.
There's a severe vulnerability, and it involves something most of us consume every single day: caffeine.
Oh, no.
Yes, the physical structure of the caffeine molecule happens to be a perfect, albeit completely wrong, fit for the chemical receptor of the prolidase enzyme. Caffeine clings to the enzyme, essentially jamming the lock so the trick keys can't get in. When that happens, no proline is produced, and collagen construction grinds to a complete halt.
Wait, are you saying my morning coffee habit is literally jamming the biological locks and preventing my skin from building collagen?
Well, the human body usually has a workaround. We have the CYP1A2 gene, which acts as a defense mechanism to break down and neutralize caffeine before it can jam those locks.
Okay, phew.
However, for 16% of the population, a defect in the CYP1A2 gene means their liver breaks down caffeine incredibly slowly. If you fall into that 16%, drinking coffee leaves caffeine circulating in your system for hours, severely restricting your skin's ability to repair its scaffolding.
That is a terrifying statistic for the coffee lovers listening. But Wallerstorfer's book mentions a fascinating biological hack to kickstart that stalled construction site, right? The peptide trick.
Yes, it is a brilliant manipulation of cellular communication. Remember those natural collagen wrecking balls we talked about?
hmm
When they break down old collagen, little fragments of it float around in your skin tissue. Your skin cells constantly monitor their environment. When they detect these floating fragments, they interpret it as a distress signal. The cells think, our collagen is falling apart, we need to panic and ramp up fresh production immediately.
And the cells aren't smart enough to know where those fragments actually came from. So the hack is to ingest tiny fish collagen peptides.
Exactly.
Because they are microscopically small, they bypass the digestive hurdles and transport deep into the skin layers. Your cells detect this sudden influx of fragments, get tricked into a state of cellular panic, and immediately kick into high gear, pumping out brand new, fresh collagen.
You are artificially triggering the body's emergency repair protocols. It is a highly effective way to bypass genetic roadblocks in collagen production.
So far, we've looked at the external trauma from the sun, the collateral damage from the immune system, and the structural economy of the skin. But all of that is happening outside or around the cell nucleus. What about the internal timer? The biological clock ticking away inside the DNA of every single cell.
Moving inside the cell brings us to the ultimate drivers of aging oxidative stress and the deterioration of our chromosome ends. Let's look at oxidative stress first. As our cells generate energy, they produce free radicals as a toxic byproduct.
Right. Free radicals.
These are highly reactive molecules that bounce around inside the cell, causing continuous microscopic damage over decades. You can think of it as biological rust.
And just like the sun and the immune system, our defense against this rust is entirely dependent on our genetics.
Correct. We have an entire anti-rust department consisting of genes like GSTM1, GSTP1, GSTT1, and SOD2. Their job is to neutralize those free radicals. But an astonishing 90% of people carry a defect in at least one of these critical anti-rust genes.
90%. So almost all of us are accumulating this microscopic rust faster than we should. And the source mentions a very specific gene interaction here that completely changes how we should buy skincare. Talk to me about the NQO1 gene.
The NQO1 gene is responsible for taking coenzyme Q10, which is a very popular anti-aging ingredient, and converting it into an active form the body can actually use. It is the biological switch that turns Q10 on.
Okay.
9% of people have a defective NQO1 gene. If you are in that 9%, buying expensive anti-aging creams loaded with Q10 is completely useless. Your body lacks the connector to use it.
It's like you're spending a fortune on batteries, but your body doesn't have the right port to plug them in.
Precisely. And the personalization goes deeper. 33% of people have an impaired GPX1 gene. To function properly and neutralize free radicals, this specific gene requires a constant supply of extra selenium.
Selenium, where do we get that?
You have to feed it by incorporating things like shrimp, Brazil nuts, or mushrooms into your diet.
It really emphasizes how blind our approach to anti-aging usually is. You know, you could be slathering on Q10 for decades with zero results when what your biological machinery actually desperately needed was a handful of Brazil nuts.
Absolutely.
But let's zoom in even closer to the DNA itself. How does the cell actually know how old it is?
This was a monumental discovery. In 1961, a gerontologist named Leonard Hayflick proved that healthy human cells cannot divide indefinitely. They have a strict programmed limit, now known as the Hayflick limit.
What's the limit?
After a cell divides about 50 to 70 times, it physically cannot divide again. It enters a permanent sleep mode called senescence. The cell doesn't die, but it stops functioning. As these sleeping cells accumulate in your tissue over the years, your skin visibly ages, sags, and loses its vitality.
The mechanism behind this limit is fascinating. Think of your DNA as a massive, vital instruction manual for your life. Every single time a cell divides, it has to photocopy that entire massive book. But the biological photocopier is inherently flawed. Every time it runs a copy, the machinery accidentally rips off and destroys the first and last few pages of the book.
Right, and if those torn pages contain crucial genetic instructions, the new cell would be mutated or destroyed.
Exactly. So to protect the actual story inside the book, nature added hundreds of pages of absolute gibberish at the very beginning and the very end. In human DNA, those gibberish pages are just the letters T, T, A, G, G, G repeated thousands of times. We call those protective gibberish pages telomeres. Every time the cell divides and the photocopier rips off a page, it's just ripping off the T, T, A, G, 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 G gibberish. The important genes are kept perfectly safe. But eventually, after 50 to 70 copies, the gibberish runs out.
And the moment the gibberish runs out, the cell forces itself into that senescent sleep mode to prevent tearing into the vital DNA. The length of your telomeres is your literal biological clock.
Right.
But there is a glaring loophole here. If telomeres constantly shorten with every cell division, how do newborns start life with long telomeres? They inherit their chromosomes from parents whose telomeres have already been shortening for decades.
Right. There has to be a mechanism that goes back and adds fresh gibberish pages to the book.
There is. It's governed by the TERT gene. This gene manufactures an enzyme called telomerase. You can envision telomerase like a train that travels to the end of the chromosome and actively lays down its own tracks. It methodically adds the TTAGDG letters back onto the DNA, effectively lengthening the telomeres and rewinding the cellular clock.
That is literally the fountain of youth. It is reversing the aging process at the cellular level. And this is incredibly vital for our stem cells, which are tasked with replacing 300 million lost cells every single minute of our lives.
It's a massive undertaking.
But keeping with the theme of genetic vulnerabilities, 70% of people have a defect in this TART gene.
A 70% defect rate means the vast majority of the population has stem cells that severely struggle to maintain their telomeres. And the genetic lottery can be even harsher.
How much harsher?
A defect in a completely different gene, the BICD1 gene, means that 26% of people are born with telomeres that are already abnormally short. Their biological cellular age is already 20 years old the very day they are born.
That is wild, to be born with cells that already think they are 2 decades old. But this entire concept makes me wonder, if telomerase is this miraculous anti-aging enzyme, why did evolution design it to turn off? Why doesn't our body just keep the CERT gene constantly activated so we never age?
Because evolution prioritizes stopping a much deadlier threat. If a cell can lengthen its telomeres endlessly, it bypasses the Hayflick limit, it can divide endlessly without restriction, and unlimited unchecked cell division is the exact biological definition of cancer.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's terrifying.
It is the ultimate biological tightrope. In fact, over 90% of all malignant tumors only manage to survive because they successfully hijack and reactivate the dormant TERT gene. The cancer uses the fountain of youth to make itself immortal.
Wow.
This is why fighting cancer often relies on finding ways to shut down telomerase. For example, EGCG, a powerful compound found in green tea, actively blocks the telomerase gene, preventing cancer cells from lengthening their telomeres.
It is chilling to realize that the exact mechanism that could keep our skin young forever is the same mechanism that would kill us. So, assuming we just want to gently protect the telomeres in our healthy stem cells without triggering immortality, what actionable steps does Waller-Storfer's research suggest?
The science gives us some very clear directives. Vitamin D3 has a profound impact. One study demonstrated that taking 2,000 IU of vitamin D3 daily over a 16-week period actually increased the activity of the telomerase gene by 19.2%.
That's significant.
Very.
Yeah.
Resveratrol, the compound found in berries and grapes, also shows strong evidence of increasing telomerase activity. And then there's the most famous dietary advice in the world, the Mediterranean diet.
Ah, yes. The universal gold standard. Olive oil, fresh vegetables, seafood. I mean, you can't read a health article without being told to adopt the Mediterranean diet.
It is the gold standard, but the genetics reveal a massive, almost unbelievable caveat. Clinical studies evaluating telomere length showed that the Mediterranean diet was highly effective at preserving telomeres, but only for the 14% of the population who happened to carry a defective PPRDG gene.
Wait, I want to make sure I'm grasping the magnitude of this. The diet only works to preserve the cellular clock for the 14% of people with that specific genetic defect. For the other 86% of the population, eating all that olive oil and salmon did nothing for their telomeres.
That is exactly what the data shows. It fundamentally shatters how we view universal dietary advice. It proves that a lifestyle change that acts as a miraculous anti-aging intervention for one person might be entirely biologically useless for the person sitting right next to them.
Which brings us all the way back to the cab of that delivery truck in Chicago. We started by looking at the shocking visual of Billy McElligot's face, the visible physical damage of the sun on his left side.
Right.
But beneath the surface of the skin, there is a staggering volume of microscopic warfare happening every second of the day.
Right.
You have genetic sunscreens either blocking rays or letting them through, immune systems making life or death calculations and starting inflammatory fires, a fragile construction economy of collagen being jammed by morning coffee, and the inevitable, terrifying ticking clock of our telomeres.
When you connect all these microscopic mechanisms together, it completely reframes how we should view the aging process. When you look in the mirror at your skin, you are not simply looking at the inevitable passage of time. And you aren't just seeing the simple reflection of your environment or your diet.
What are we actually seeing?
You are looking at a highly personalized, real-time genetic diary. Your face is a physical, living record of exactly how your unique, microscopic biology has interacted with the world around you. Which means the true future of anti-aging will never be found in a universal miracle cream formulated for the masses. The future lies in finally learning how to read your own specific biological instruction manual.
A genetic diary. I absolutely love that framework. And for everyone listening, that is your provocative thought to carry with you today. The next time you look in the mirror, think about what your own instruction manual might look like and ask yourself what your biological diary is writing down right now.